Hi folks, thank you so much for joining me. We've obviously been having a bit of a chat in the chat room on the 5-minute countdown leading up to this, and I said to the folks there that some kind of little error message popped up on my dashboard. So as usual, I know that you've been saying you can hear me in the chat when we had the countdown. Could you just let me know that you can see me and hear me on the screen? And I'm just going to carry on as per normal going through this live. So thank you so much for joining me. I can see that we've got people from all over the place. I can see we've got people from on Facebook and on YouTube. So thankfully, because we had the broadband upgrade, we can stream basically to multiple platforms. We can't do the Instagram just yet because they haven't got that going for us here in the UK, but fingers crossed that will come out fairly soon. Right, this is obviously going to be about printing. It's called Printing Problems, It's Not You. And I'm going to go through something to show you that even though you put in the correct settings, it doesn't matter what software you're using, you're going to get different results. And that can be really frustrating. So I want to kind of show you that that's what happens to me, so that when you do your printing and it kind of doesn't come out how you quite expect it to, it might not be your problem. It might not be something that you've done. It could be your choice of software. So that's what we're going to go through. Now, there's obviously going to be some admin that I will go through as we do this live broadcast. But what I am going to do, because we're going to print these live, I'll do it while each print is happening. Rather than me doing it now, it'll give us something to talk about, because it's going to take a few minutes for each print to come through. The only admin I am going to kind of give you is this one here. Make sure that if you haven't already, click on the subscribe button, which should just say follow, because it is confusing when it says subscribe. It kind of sounds like it's something to pay for, when it isn't. It literally is so that every time you go to YouTube, you get notified when there's a new video, and that's all there is to it. And also, it's good. It's good for me. It's a good bit of encouragement that people are watching what I'm doing. But right, let's just dive straight into it. I recently did a print, and I shared this on social media, of this one here. This is a picture that I took with my new iPhone 15 Pro Max. Now, this isn't going to be about the use of the iPhone 15 Pro Max, but me doing this print kind of made me think that I wanted to do a live about printing. Even more so after I got this message from a friend of mine who's actually in the chat as we speak. Stuart, he's there, Stuart Wood, and it says basically asking, am I still doing the printing course that I've mentioned for quite a while now that hasn't materialized? And so obviously the answer was yes. And Stuart's saying, oh good, because he's thinking of doing some printing because he would like to sell his images. And his images, by the way, are outstanding. One of his images is the one that's used for the thumbnail of this video. But let me just show you this here. This is Stuart's website, which I highly encourage you to take a look at. I'm going to put all the links into this and everything else after we've gone, after the actual video has gone live and been posted out. But look at his portfolio here, all this macro stuff. I mean, it's just another world. It literally is, like he says in his stuff here, it's another world. Just the most amazing stuff. Let's just wait for this one to come through here. Look, it's going a bit slow. It's kind of building up the suspense. But I mean, look at that. Just amazing stuff. Absolutely amazing stuff. So Stuart contacted me basically saying that he was wanting to look at selling some of his images. And I said, well, is there anything in particular you want to know about printing? So I thought it'd be a good one to show you, because it can be very frustrating. And yes, Jens, you are absolutely right. They really are. They really are incredibly, stunning images. I highly recommend that you go and check out his website. So what we're going to do then is I'm going to dive over into, let's have a look here. Let's just bring up I'm going to bring up Photoshop first of all, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to print from 3 different pieces of software. I'm going to print from Photoshop because that's generally what most people have access to. I'm also going to print from Lightroom. And then I'm going to print, because I'm using a Canon, I'm going to print from Canon's own software. And we're going to use exactly the same settings, but I want you to see that the results will differ. They will differ. And as we go through this as well, there's a few little things that I want to explain to you. So, right, first of all, now this image here, that is a damselfly. I'm reading Stuart's title that is actually given this image here. It's a damselfly with a gerbera daisy. Okay. Now, what you'll notice is, first of all, this is something I wanted to cover with you, is the fact that when you have an image open in Photoshop, you obviously have a tab here that has the name of the file, the magnification you have it set to, and then the color space and the bit depth. All right. Now, at the moment, I actually asked Stuart to send this image to me in Adobe RGB color space. Now, I'm just going to quickly force it to show you something that you might occasionally see, which can really throw you a little bit, especially those of you who use Lightroom. When you send an image from Lightroom into Photoshop, you often hear it, people saying, why does my image look different in Lightroom to Photoshop? And that can generally be because of a color space mismatch. So check this out. So what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to go to the color settings here, and I'm just going to change them to say, I don't know, something like, let's go for Pro Photo RGB. So the image of Stuart's is a Adobe RGB image, but the color space I have Photoshop set to is Pro Photo RGB. So two different color spaces. Now you'll know that your image is in a different color space because when you open it, you're going to have this here. So this is the actual enlarging bit. Can you see we've got this little asterisk? You've got the RGB / it's an 8-bit image. I asked him to send it over, 8 bits fine. It's got a little asterisk symbol. Now that asterisk symbol basically means there is a color space mismatch between the image and Photoshop. All right, so you might have your Lightroom settings that when you're sending it to your external editor, be it Photoshop or whatever, you'll have told it to be in a certain color space, a certain file format, a certain bit depth, and what have you. You might find, if you're noticing a difference between your images in Lightroom and Photoshop, you might find that the color space you're sending the image from in Lightroom is different to what you have Photoshop set to. All right, so let's just go back to my desktop. So you'll notice I can't zoom in unfortunately on this one here, but you've got the little asterisk symbol. I know this is an Adobe RGB, so all I would do is go to Photoshop, go to the edit menu, color settings, and then the RGB here, the working color space, I'm going to change to Adobe RGB, click OK, and if you did try somehow to zoom in, you'll notice that the asterisk has actually gone. All right, so now everything's in sync. We've minimized any potential issues. Now, another little symbol that you might occasionally see in that little tab there next to where you've got the color space and the bit depth, you might also see a hashtag symbol. That basically means that the image that you have open in Photoshop has no color space assigned to it. So you need to assign a color space for it to then carry on working. So that's it. You've got your asterisk, means a color mismatch, color space mismatch, and the asterisk means that you've got no color space assigned to that particular image. It's probably very rare you'll get that. The most common one will be the little asterisk symbol there. All right, so let's print this image out then. We're going to go into the file menu. Oh, let's just cancel that. Let's go to the file menu and we'll go down to print. Now I'm obviously using Canon, I'm using Mac. I am also recording this whole class and writing the book on this class in both Windows and Mac and Epson and Canon. Right, so let's just scale that to fit media. So we've got the A4 paper in there. So this is the most important part in Photoshop where it says color management, color handling, the choices you get. Do you want the printer to manage the colors or do you want Photoshop to manage the colors? Now what you want is for Photoshop to manage the colors. You are not going to let the printer do its own thing and print stuff out. You need to take control to tell Photoshop, this is the settings I need you to use, and then that'll send that information to the printer, and then hopefully you'll get a good screen to print match. All right, so I'm going to choose in here Photoshop manages colors. Then we have a printer profile, and this is where you would put in the ICC profile that is relevant for the particular paper that you're using. Now the paper that I'm using is this one here. This is it's a titanium luster. It's by Permajet. It's got a metallic kind of feel to it, and that's what I printed this black and white image on, which I appreciate obviously me showing you it like that. You can't really fully grasp it, but it adds almost a three-dimensional feel to it. It is so good printed on a metallic paper. And I thought that Stuart's image, with it being so incredibly detailed and vibrant, a titanium metallic based paper would work perfect for it. So what I do there then is in the actual printer profile here, I choose the ICC profile that is relevant for that particular paper. And that ICC profile I get from the website of the paper that I'm using. So I go to Permajet's website, look up the paper, tell it what printer I'm using, and it says, here is your ICC profile, and that's what you use. All right. So now we've got that there. Now this is an interesting one here, and it's only really relevant in Photoshop. We've got rendering intent, and we've got a few. The two that you need to concern yourselves about is perceptual and relative. Now these can get a little bit sometimes confusing, and sometimes people can get a little bit stuck in their ways with them, and they'll tend to use always one particular rendering intent. Now what does this basically mean? A rendering intent is basically telling your printing software how to handle color, in particular color that is outside of the color space that you have your software set to. All right, so maybe there's colors, what they call it, out of gamut. So if there's colors out of gamut, how should it handle it? So we have perceptual. Now with perceptual, basically what's going to happen is, if there are some colors that are out of gamut, the actual software is going to move all of the colors, not just the ones that are out of gamut, but all of the colors, so that they fit within the color space and it can be printed. There's also another one. There's this one here called relative. Now relative, what that will basically do is, if you have some colors that are outside of the working color space, the gamut is out of gamut, it'll nudge those back in so that it can be printed, and it'll leave all the other ones alone. Now you might think, well, that sounds like the best one. Why wouldn't you just choose that? It really is image dependent. However, you tend to find that relative, because it will only move those that are out of gamut in and leave everything else alone, a lot of times people will use that one when they're printing portraits, because it's a good one for skin, because if it moves any colors, it's going to leave the skin alone. So that's what you'd want to do. And I'm going to cover a little bit more about this one in a second. But also, I'm going to choose relative, and you'll probably, no, in fact, no, I'm going to choose perceptual. That was the one I wanted to go for. There's also this one little tick box here called black point compensation. Now, if you're using Lightroom, that is automatically ticked, which is what you want, because black point compensation is basically, it's a cop-out for your software. If you don't have it turned on, if your image has got lots of blacks in it, like say this image here, what's going to happen is your software is going to go, right, I'm going to print blacks to that are of this kind of value. All right, so obviously 0 is pure black, and we go on the color scale 0 to 255. So 0 is pure black, and then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it gets slightly brighter, goes into shades of gray. If you don't tick that checkbox, your software might go, do you know what? I want to take the easy route out here. I'm not going to print really dark blacks. I'm going to print it around about value of 5. And anything that's darker than that, I ain't bothered with. And you don't really want that. You want to make sure you have that full tonal range. So if you put a tick in the black point compensation checkbox, it will try to replicate all of the range of those blacks, which is again going to give you a much better, fingers crossed, screen to print match. But you don't need to worry about that in Lightroom. It's only Photoshop that you have to manually tick it. Crazy, but hey, there you go. Right, so let's go back to my desktop. So we've got all that done there. So we have we're using the correct printer. We've got Photoshop managing the colors. We've got the ICC profile, the rendering intent, and we've got black point compensation turned on. And I think that is about all we need to do. Let's go to print settings. So this will be relevant regarding whatever printer you're using. It'll also kind of show up slightly differently if you're on Windows, and it'll show up slightly differently if you're using, say, Epson or something like that. But in here, the most important part I'm going to go to is where it says printer options. And if I tap on that, we've got this one here called color matching. Now, if I open that up, you'll notice on the Mac, they're grayed out, which means that there is no color kind of color work being done whatsoever. So the computer's not, it's not going to the printer, is not going to try to use any kind of color matching. It's just going to basically leave it to the software we're using. Again, if you're on Windows, what you tend to find is that you have to manually turn that off. It's one of those little good things about Mac where it automatically turns it off for you. So that's important there. And then the other one that's important, no matter what you're using, computer or print or whatever, is where it says media type. Now, in here, media type, at the moment it says Photo Paper Pro Luster, and I've got a choice of all different papers. Now, what this is basically referring to is it's not an ICC profile telling how the colours should be done. It's basically your printer saying, look, what kind of paper are you putting in me? I need to know how much ink to put down, how high to lift the print head, and so on and so on and so on. Now, the way you get to know that, certainly with Permajet, and I think this is pretty much similar with most other paper manufacturers, is inside each box of paper that you get, you'll get a sheet like this. And on the left-hand side, it'll say all the names of the papers that they have. And then it goes in columns to say, look, if you're using a Canon printer and you're using this particular paper, then this is the equivalent one of Canon's paper that you should use. All right, I hope that makes sense. Now, for me using this titanium luster paper from Permajet, they recommend that the equivalent paper to use would be this photo paper Pro Luster. And like I said, all that's going to tell now is that's going to tell the printer, especially the one I've got behind me, which has got 10 inks in it, and it's got 2 blacks. It's got matte black and photo black. So by me telling it which media type I'm using, it now knows which of those 2 blacks to use. Because if I use, say, a photo black on a matte paper, that would be wrong, and the ink would just sit on the surface. It wouldn't absorb into the paper. So it's really important that you do this. So it tells it which black to use. It also tells it how high or low to have the print head as it's moving across. Because if you have it too low and you've got some thick paper in there, you're going to hear like a knocking sound. You go bang, bang, bang. It's called a print head strike. And that eventually will damage your print, let alone you'll see kind of ink being bashed onto the side of your paper, which obviously you don't want if you're printing stuff out. So that's really, really important. So with this one here, I go for Photo Paper Pro Luster, highest quality print, of course, and we'll click on OK and click on Save on that, and then I'm just going to print. So all being well, that's all now been sent to that printer over the back. So let me just get out of my seat, have a quick look, make sure things are, oh, no, I can hear things are moving. Let's have a quick look. Yep, that's printing out. Right, this will be interesting. I tried this earlier on, and if it works like it did earlier, you're going to love this. You're going to really love the difference in this. By the way, I can see there are some questions coming in on the chat there. I will do my best to go through these afterwards. All right. Right. While that's printing, it takes a few minutes. Let me just do a little bit of admin. And the first bit of admin I want to go through is this here. So today, the new issue of Photoshop User magazine has been released. It's an online magazine that absolutely everybody can access. You don't have to be a member of KelbyOne to access it. And the reason I'm telling you about this one is because once a year, what happens is we have the 100 hot tips. And basically, KelbyOne, they ask us, certain people around the world, to say, right, could you write us 10 of your top tips? And they include it in that. So there's 100 top tips, 10 of us instructors. So you can watch it. If you're not, sorry, you can read it. If you're not a member of KelbyOne, all you need to do is go to that URL there, and you'll be able to just, I think you have to kind of put your name and email address in, obviously, and then you can then log in and you can actually read through the magazine. The only difference between a member and a non-member is that a non-member doesn't have access to all the, I think it's like 120 previous editions of the magazine. But you can certainly have a look at that one just there. So that's what I wanted to tell you about there. That's printing. Let me just have a quick look at some of the questions that we've got. One here from Stuart himself. Is it correct, read on the form, that if you don't set up the printer and paper correctly, you can damage the print heads? 100%? Absolutely, Stuart. And that is completely relevant regarding telling it what media type you're using. Like I said, that really, really important sheet of paper that I used to just chuck away. I just thought that this was excess paper. It's like when you get a manual for a camera. In the drawer it goes, you don't worry about it. But that piece of paper there, and they've also got this information on their website, is very, very, very important because it will tell your printer exactly what it needs to do. Let's have one from here. I've got Mark Landemore says, do you always use the generic ICC profiles or do you have make custom profiles? Great question, Mark. I mean, I used to have, in fact, I've still got it, what's called a spectrophotometer. I'll actually get that word out, where I would be able to scan any paper. It could even be toilet paper. I just had to print out a certain colour set of patches and then use this machine to scan them, and then that would create an ICC profile that I could then use. And the advantage of that was whatever paper I was using, I didn't have to wait for, sending it off, then getting an ICC profile back. However, what I've noticed over recent times is, and again, certainly Permajet, who've got nothing to do with this, are not sponsored by them or whatever, I've found that their homemade, the ones that they make in store, their profiles are really, really good. They're generic profiles. And I've also found out that every time there's a new operating system update, that can impact the printing. So they redo the ICC profiles that you can download off their website. So no, I don't tend to do my own anymore. Although in the course I will show how to do that. Let's have a look here. Oh, we've got the prints come off. Right, let's grab the print. Okay, now, if you hadn't seen the original image, let me just put that there. Let's see if this works. I'm going to try and dive over. There you go. There's the top-down view. Now, that there is the print I've just done there. You can see there's a lovely sheen to it. I don't know if that's showing that it's metallic, but it is an incredible print. Now, that looks great. I mean, to me, that looks great. However, compare that now to the screen. So that's the image that Stuart sent over to me, which looks amazing. And that's the image that I've just printed, which looks amazing, but the colours don't quite match. Now, everything was done correctly. Absolutely everything was done correctly. All the settings, but you can see for whatever reason, how it kind of interprets those settings, that particular software, it's come out like that. So that's the first one. I'll put that to one side, because now what we're going to do is we're going to dive over to Lightroom. Again, this is something that a lot of people use for printing. So let's have a look now how it comes out in Lightroom. So again, here I am in the print module. In fact, before we print it, let's dive into the develop module and I'll zoom in. Look at the detail. I mean, even in the little bubbles here. Incredible, absolutely incredible. Now in Lightroom, we have this soft proofing down in the bottom left-hand corner. Now I'm gonna put a little tick in there to turn on soft proofing, purely because I want to show you the difference between this perceptual and relative rendering intent. Now at the moment it's set to perceptual. Keep an eye on this area here, the middle area of this bug's face, and also the surrounding colour, this orange colour with this bit of a vignette on it. Now I'm going to first of all turn off the soft proofing. I'm going to turn it off and on, off and on. Look, see if you can see a difference, and I'm really hoping this shows through as we're streaming it. So that's off, that's on, that's off, that's on. Now can you see in particular, look at the middle part here, you'll notice something changing. Off, on, off, on. All right, so that's that one. Now look at relative. Again, keep an eye on the middle and keep an eye on the actual outside colours. I'm going to jump now from perceptual to relative. Can you see that? Now, I don't know how you feel about it, but for me, I tend to think that the actual perceptual is the best option to go for, because when I use relative, it seems to dull down the colours, certainly down in this bottom right-hand corner, and it shifts something in the middle here. Let me do that again for you. There's relative, perceptual, relative, perceptual. Perceptual as well seems a little bit sharper for me, so that's the one I'm going to go for. So that's a good way that you can test it. I would say don't just get into that habit of always using one particular one. Certainly if you're in Lightroom, just have a quick switch between the two to see which one you prefer. Okay, and you'll be quite surprised because there's no skin tones in that one, but you do notice a difference. All right. Okay, so anyway, let's come out of the soft proofing. Let's just zoom out again. And we'll come out of soft proofing and we'll go into the print module. Got it pretty much all set up. In the print section here, we're going to send it to the printer, resolution, media type, make it glossy, 16-bit output. In here, I need to make sure that it says the ICC profile. Again, we've got this titanium luster, and I'm using the rendering intent of perceptual. Now in Lightroom, there's also this little checkbox where it says print adjustment. Really, if you get this done, if you set this up correctly, you shouldn't have to do that, because you've got to spend a lot of money on your printer, you spend money on your inks, money on your paper, you spend ages doing all this retouching. If you now start putting a little tick in the print adjustment box and then playing around with the two sliders, which are brightness and contrast, you're kind of introducing a bit of guesswork. And there's only one way that guesswork's going to go, and it ain't going to be good. So really, if you've got this set up correctly, you shouldn't have to use print adjustment. So we're not going to bother with that. So that's that done. I'll now go to print settings like we did before in Photoshop. Using the correct printer. You'll notice here there's another one here called AirPrint. If you're a Mac user, do not use AirPrint. Make sure, if you can, that your printer is connected to your computer with a cable of some sort, USB, Ethernet, whatever, but don't let it be wireless. There is a lot of reasons for it. We won't cover that in this, but I can certainly answer it maybe at the end if you want to know. So that's that there. Again, we're going to go down to printer options just to check that everything's okay. We'll go to the color matching. You see there, look, it's already turned off, which is great, which is what we want. Quality and media. This is where we choose the correct media type according to what paper we're using. So we've got the correct one there. Photo Paper Pro Luster, top feed, highest quality printing. So we'll click OK. We'll save that, and then we'll come to the bottom right and we'll just go print. So let's just see. Something should happen fairly soon. There we go. Process of preparing print job. And there we go. Right. Yep, you can hear it. You can hear it now. It's started behind me, which is cool. So let's have a quick look now at some questions just to see why that's doing that. Screens and print will always differ. You can hard proof with that feature. Yeah, absolutely, Greg. You can. Screens and prints will always differ in slightly brightness. Yeah, that's a great point. We do kind of go on and on about the fact that, you know, we want it to match perfectly our screen with our print. And you're never going to get that. It's going to get so accurate, but never be completely accurate. Like what Greg says, main reason for what Greg says there is because your screen is backlit. All right, so that's one of the reasons it's mainly the color, the contrast, and the brightness levels you want to be as near as damn it. All right. Gail's put which printer is best. Do you know what? It's going to be personal choice. However, I have got Epson sending me a printer next week, an A3 Plus equivalent of what I've got behind me here, so that I can use that one as well and record stuff for the printing course with it. But it's an interesting question, Gail, because maybe about a week ago, I did a half a day literally on video helping a guy called Andy with his printing because he was having a problem printing out his images where he was getting a magenta color cast on every single image that he printed. And he was using a Canon 100S. Now, we went through all the settings, did everything, and no matter what we did, the image would still come out with a magenta color cast. Now, I kind of did a bit of Googling whilst we were chatting, and it turns out that the 100S in particular does suffer with magenta color cast issues. One of the fixes was to say, look, make sure that you have got enough cyan ink in the printer. So we checked it, and sure enough, the cyan had run out. And because of that, the magenta was overcompensating. So that's why you were getting that color cast. But he replaced it, we washed it through, still getting the magenta color cast. So it's an older printer, so I wouldn't go for the 100S. I would highly recommend the 300, Canon Pro 300, the 200, the 1000, although the 1000's been around for a long time now. I would imagine soon that's going to be upgraded, I would imagine. Right, but let me just have a quick through here. My friend Anthony's mentioned somebody called Gareth asked a question. I'll see if I can find that. Oh, here we go. So here's Gareth's question, which I think Anthony was alluding to. Do you calibrate your screen or find that an out-of-calibrated screen causes issues when looking at the print? Do you also have a daylight balance bulb to view the prints? Great question. Right, okay, so calibration. Didn't mention it. Gareth, thanks for bringing it up. Yes, I do religiously calibrate my screen. I don't set the software to remind me, say, once a month or whatever to do that. My reminder to calibrate my screen is every time I'm going to do a print. I will always calibrate my screen, and I did do before we did this live. I'll always calibrate my screen before I do a print because I don't want to waste any more money than I did all those years ago. I don't want to waste ink. I don't want to waste paper. All right, so I'll calibrate it beforehand. And I have had issues where the calibration was not done correctly and the prints didn't match. And do you have a daylight balance bulb? All the bulbs in this room here, apart from those decorative ones at the back there, are daylight balanced. The ones above me, this one in front of me. But also, I've got this thing here. And this is a daylight balanced viewing lamp. So when I turn that on, I'll put the prints underneath and I can view them and see them as they would be in daylight. Because obviously we can, I think, do you know I pressed print twice? It's doing 2 prints. But anyway, right. Now this is interesting. This is really interesting. This here is the print from Lightroom. So let's jump to my overhead camera. Let's just press that one just there. So this one here, first of all, in fact, let me just I'll put a PS. So that was Photoshop. And this is Lightroom. Okay, so I'm going to put LRC, Lightroom Classic. Now look, if I put them both together, pretty identical, right? Pretty identical. But if we look at the image we're printing, it is a little bit different. Now the background on Stuart's original image is a lot warmer, it's a lot more vibrant, there's a lot more red in it, but then we look at these two, it's more orange. All right, now obviously there's no coincidence here because this printing from Photoshop and printing from Lightroom, it's the same kind of engine, you know, the same software really is being used for doing the printing, so you'd kind of expect to get the same results. Now they're not results that I would be overly impressed with. So let's just get rid of Gareth's comment. So I don't use, this is one of the reasons I don't use Photoshop or Lightroom to do my printing. I use other software. Now there is software, there's one called 𝐶 Great one, really good bit of software called 𝐶. You can do layouts, you can do all kinds of things with it. Way more user-friendly, I would suggest, than Lightroom, and definitely way more user-friendly than Photoshop when it comes to printing. So I definitely recommend that. Lightroom, the details better. Blimey, Gail, you can I don't know really. Let's have a dive in there quickly again. I really don't know, and maybe it's the light on it, but to me, you know, seeing these in here, very, very difficult to say, to be honest with you, Gads. They do look pretty similar to me, but anyway. So 𝐶 is one, and I'm using a Canon printer, so I'm going to use the Canon Pro print layout software next, and you're going to see, hopefully, fingers crossed, if this works out, you will notice a difference. I've got a third print coming out there. That's me being impatient. So what I'll do is I'm going to have to get out another sheet of this titanium luster here. Oh, actually, while I'm doing that, let me just tell you about this. Let's just, where are we? There we go. I've mentioned this a few times now since I've been doing, you know, YouTube recorded, pre-records and YouTube lives. Don't forget that the Photoshop Virtual Summit is coming out. Okay, it's less than 4 weeks to go until we have the Virtual Summit. And like it says, 20 instructors, 40 classes over 5 days, and you can watch it for free. So, you know, if you just go to this link here, you can register for a free pass, and then you've got it. And if you don't use it, so be it. It doesn't really matter if you don't use it. But if you do use it, then great. So it's kind of like there's nothing to, you know, everything to gain, nothing to lose. Register for it, and if you don't use it, so what? But you've got it there anyway. So make sure, go to that link and then grab that. But again, I'll put these links in the description of the video once it's been recorded and put up onto YouTube and Facebook. Right, let me just replace this paper. Right, that's in there now. We don't need that one. And let's now dive over into the Canon Pro Print layout. Now, there are different levels or different model versions rather of this particular software. This is the Pro Print layout software, and this is only relevant to be used for the 200, the Pro 300 and the Pro 1000. There is other Canon software which is kind of similar that you can use. It is a little bit different, but this one in particular is for the Pro 200, 300 and 1000. Now obviously, you know, if you're using Epson, you'll have your own Epson stuff as well, their software, and I'm looking forward to trying that out next week actually when that comes through. But in here you can see that I've loaded the image up. Let's have a look here. Media type, it's really intuitive, this. I do like this, it's so much easier to use. Media type. So again, we're going to choose that Photo Paper Pro Luster. And all of these, by the way, are loaded in when you first of all install your particular printer. So Photo Paper Pro Luster, A4, we're going for finest quality printing. It's got a little checkbox here for contrast reproduction, which it says is it restores the sharpness lost when data is transferred to the printer and reproduces the sharpness of the original image when printing. I mean, you would always put a tick in that one there, wouldn't you? You always would. Okay, so if we come further down, here we've got the actual important part. We're going to use an ICC profile. We're going to use that titanium luster. Perceptual rendering intent, and you can see here, look at the bottom, there's a little tick there for that black point compensation, which we know from having explained about it earlier on, we are definitely going to put a tick in that. So always, you know, slow down, look what your settings are, make sure you've got a little tick in that black point compensation. So that's it, all we've got to do on that one, and we'll press print. Great thing here is it does show you, look, these are a summary of your settings. So are you happy with those? And if you are, then click OK. So that now is going to send that image over into the printer. I'm going to sit here and just hope I can hear that little bit of a thing start up any moment to say that it is going to be printing. Stuart, if this works out, this is the one I'm sending to you. All right. It's gone very quiet behind me though. Let's have a quick look. Oh, no, there's activity. Right. Right, that's printing. Right, that's doing that. Let's have a quick look through the comments just here to make sure we've got some stuff. Anything that needs answering. If you can... interesting. So Kirsty's put, if you can, one of Canon's Picmo Pro software... Oh, so there's another bit of software called Canon Image Garden. Okay, interesting. There's tons of software out there, but I'll have a look at that one. Greg Shaw, that's what Greg's put here. Around £3. What's high quality paper from Photo Speed? Yeah, another great print, another great paper producer. One thing that's really impressed me about Epson, and this is what I'm really looking forward to, is the fact that they've told me that their inks are made in the UK. And that's kind of important nowadays, isn't it? It's important to, you know, there's less mileage covered. And actually, because they're made in the UK and there's not all those transportation costs, they say that makes them cheaper as well. So, yeah, interesting. I'm looking forward to trying that. Gail has asked, Mr. Software you're using, repeat. The software I'm using now that this print is coming off is the Canon Pro Print Layout. That's what it's called. Canon Pro Print Layout. If you've got a 200, a 300 or a 1000, that's the software that you can use. Richard Jenkins, when printing, do you have a standardized setting for DPI? My images generally, when I do a raw conversion, I have them at, I've always done it 240 pixels per inch. So when it comes to the printing, I always set it to 240. I think I have anyway on there. Should have done 240. I've had people before say, oh no, change it, put it to 300. My image is already 240. I can't add pixels per inch to it. It's already 240, but 240 is what I go for. I mean, 240 to 360, are you really going to notice any kind of difference? Robert Cox has put what model, oops, I forget, add to broadcast, what model Epson are being sent, what are they sending me? I'll have to look through the details, but Damon from Epson, I don't know, but it's the equivalent of the Pro 300, whatever that'll be. Right, let's have a quick look. I'm scouring through these. Let's just close that one down. The print's coming off. I can hear it behind me. I really hope this one comes out looking different. It should come looking different. Andy's just got the Pro 300. Fantastic. Seriously impressive bit of kit. Do you do any hardware maintenance to ensure good print quality? Now, Andy, I'd like to say yes, but it's only minimal. And that is, I do my best to remember not to turn the printer off, okay? Because I have been told, and I have actually noticed this, that if you turn your printer off continually and then turn it on, off and on, you'll notice that you will use a lot of ink, because every time it's turned back on, it'll do like a wash through. And that's just ink that's being used to clear the jets to make sure everything's good. And that's just wasted ink. If you have it left on, although it will do that over a certain amount of time, it does it way less. So that's all I do. I don't religiously do any kind of print head cleaning or anything like that unless I started to notice issues. And because I do use it quite regular, that's the thing you see, Andy. It's, you know, you've got a great bit of kit there. It's not something that you should pick up every now and again and do a print once every 6 months. You want to try and do one, I would suggest, at least one a week. All right, that might sound a lot, but it will save you money in the long term. But in the meantime, that printer has finished. I think I can see a difference. Can I see a difference? Can I really see a difference? Oh, blimey. Let's have a look here. Let's have a look down here. Yeah, I think, actually, yeah, I can. Woo, it's worked. Thank heavens for that. Right, let me just show you my top down again. There you go, camera I mean. That is the one that's just printed. Now look how much more vibrant this area is here. Much more vibrant, loads of detail. That's looking really lovely. So now look, to show you between the three that I've just done. So that's the actual one off the Canon, and that's the one from Lightroom. And that's the one from Photoshop. Look at the difference. I mean, exactly the same settings, but totally different. These two here, pretty much identical, but look at the difference in that one there, especially when we jump back to the image on screen, which is that one. So we've got that, and we've got that. That there is way, way closer to the original image that Stuart edited. So I would definitely stick with this one. I really like that one there. That's really looking good. Now, there is something else that you can do within this particular software, and a lot of other software allows you to do this. Let me just see if I can show you on... Yeah, right. Let me just dive back onto my screen here. Let's dive into color settings. And right down at the bottom here, there's a little button that says pattern print. Now, if I tap on that, you get this. And this is an arrangement of the same image with certain values different in them. Let's see if I can expand it just a little bit so you can hopefully read that. Let's just bring it up. There you go. That's better. Now you'll see here in the middle, we've got cyan, magenta, and yellow. These three values, and they're all at 0. And that is basically saying that is what this image is. All right. When it's printed with no adjustments, that's what it is. However, if you then look around and say, actually, I still want it to be a bit more vibrant, you can choose one of the actual squares here and go, well, actually, do you know what? I like this one. I think this one is more accurate. You would just dial in cyan of -15, magenta of 15, and yellow of 0. And you'd put those within these three sliders over on the right-hand side. So it's kind of like, would you call that hard proving? I'd basically call it a proof sheet. You know, a lot of the printing houses, a lot of fashion houses will do that. They'll do a sheet with all the prints on, and they'll go, right, that's the one we want. And then you dial in those adjustments, and then away you go. Now, obviously, when you do that, I mean, I never do that because I tend to find that the settings that I use are pretty damn accurate, and I get great results. However, it's always worth experimenting. You know, for the sake of printing off one piece of paper with all those variations on, to then dial those settings in to get one that is absolutely on the money with no questions asked. That's probably not a bad idea to do that. So, yeah, I'd kind of consider doing that. So, yeah, that's called a pattern print, and you can tend to find that in most software. That's obviously in this Canon ProPrint layout software. The other version of the Canon software definitely does that as well, because I remember when I was going through it with Andy, he had that option. And I would imagine the Epson software will as well, because obviously Epson are way up there when it comes to printing. So, but again, I shall let you know that. I'll let you know that as of next week once I get it through. But just another one then, quickly dive down. Let's have a look. There you go. That's that one there. And then look at the difference. Huge, huge difference with the same settings. How crazy is that? Hopefully just by seeing that, that's going to make you kind of realize that it isn't necessarily you doing something wrong. It can be the software that interprets things differently. You know, I've used the same paper, the same settings, and the same printer, but just 3 different bits of software giving me 2 actually, because the Lightroom and Photoshop very much, very, very similar, but the Canon software way, way better. And yeah, Kirsty, I totally agree with you. The reds definitely look better in that particular image just there. So that's what I wanted to show you. Anything else I wanted to go through? Let's have a quick look, check on my my to-do list. Right, yeah, before I go, I want to, this has actually gone on longer than I thought it would. Don't forget to, if you're interested in looking at a screen, you want it in the market for a new display, then definitely give me a shout. You know, drop me a message, either an email, a comment, or whatever, and we can speak offline, because I've got an association with BenQ where I can get discounts. And I've helped quite a few people with it recently, whereby they've got a 10% discount and it's less than what they would pay on Amazon. So if you're interested in looking at BenQ monitor on the PD range or the SW range, which is the photographer monitors, give me a shout. I'm not going to put the code in the comments, because I want it to be a bit more of a relationship thing where I can guide you through and help you go through to get it. There's a question come up here which I better answer. Do you edit in ProPhoto then convert, or just do you edit in Adobe RGB? Right, controversial question. Right, controversial question. And over in the past, I have said that I always would work in ProPhoto. There is a video that I'm going to be putting out again soon about color management and what colors you should be using. But basically, I now religiously work in Adobe RGB. Adobe RGB, because ProPhoto RGB has what they call imaginary colors, colors that the human eye can't see. And also printers, there is no printer on the market that can print beyond Adobe RGB. So I will always work in Adobe RGB. But there'll be people who disagree, but you know, I'm happy with what I get, and that's the advice I've been given from people who are way more qualified when it comes to color. Let's have a few more questions here. Todd, you could order a print from them. Jumping into the middle of a conversation here, I think. Let's have a quick look, see if I dive through. Any questions in particular that jump out? Brian, thank you very much for that. Make sure you give us a like, which is always helpful, and obviously don't forget to subscribe. That always helps, which means follow. Doesn't cost you any money, but it's just great for me. There's that. Nice question, nice comment here. Todd Strong, this inspires me to get my own printer. However, when you really want large prints for a client, how can you make sure your color is accurate when using a print house? Great question, Todd. Really good question. I highly recommend that you get your own printer for a start off. I would say probably if you're not going to do a lot of printing, go for the maximum of A3 Plus, because if you go for an A2 printer, they are workhorses and they need to be worked. And if you don't work them, it's going to be very expensive to keep having to get them cleaned and fixed. So go for an A3 Plus. Now, a lot of print houses will offer ICC profiles so that you can put those in, so you can check how their images should print, so you can soft proof them before you send them up. But what I would suggest you do more than anything is not use these faceless online print houses. Develop a relationship with a print house. Now, I've developed a relationship with a company in the UK called Digitalab. I'll put my teeth in. Digitalab, who are based up in Newcastle, and they are outstanding. They are literally outstanding. There's a guy there who works for them called Jeff, who is Mr. Print. He is incredible. So what I will do is I'll send an image to them when I want it to be really big, and Jeff will just kind of know what looks right and what looks wrong. And if he's a bit kind of uncertain about it, he will print off some small versions with variations. Say, Glyn, this is what you sent me without any adjustments, but I was thinking, would you want more of this, this, and this? And you go, no, Jeff, it's okay. Stick with what I sent you, game on. And that's what they'll do. And then from then on, they kind of know that what you send is to be left alone, or it might be that every time you send a print to them, they know that, you know, John Smith or Sarah Jones, whenever they send prints, I have to tweak it this particular way. So I would suggest, if you're able to, make a relationship, develop a relationship with a printers rather than sending it to a faceless print house. Okay, so that's what I've done. Rob Bowes, isn't everybody confused by Adobe RGB, sRGB, and Pro? So much I could say, but I will do another video on it basically. But my advice would be to work in Adobe RGB. So many people will say otherwise. And if you are going to be using sRGB, if you're going to send images to somebody else, send them in sRGB. Think of the S as meaning safe RGB. All right. So yeah, there you go. Cool. Right. Anything else I need to tell you? I've told you about the BenQ thing. I've told you about the Photoshop user magazine. Go and get it, download it, register and what have you at this link so you can actually read it. There's 100 tips in there and loads of other stuff in that magazine. It's the first time I've really looked at it for a while. So there's loads of stuff in there for that. And also don't forget, register for the Photoshop Virtual Summit. Use it. If you don't use it, it doesn't matter. If you do, then great. But just register. get yourself a free pass. You've got nothing to lose by getting it. And I don't know when, but I know at some point those free passes aren't available. Lots more coming. I'm going to wrap this one up, but there's lots more coming. There's my first impressions of the iPhone 15 Pro Max, which I think will be surprising. I think it'll be surprising for those who know me. I am very happy I got it, but the reasons why might be different. And also, there's a bit of software, a bit of hardware I'm using now, which is, I can't show you, but it's basically smaller than the palm of my hand, which is controlling all of this. Incredible bit of kit. So if you use Microsoft Teams, Zoom, if you do live broadcasts, anything like that at all, if you do gaming, streaming, whatever, great bit of kit. I'm going to do a very good video. I'm going to do a video on that as well to show you that that's a really handy bit of kit to use for all this kind of stuff. But that's it. Cool. I am going to love you and leave you. So make sure, if you haven't already, subscribe or follow, whatever, you know the score. Yeah, this will they'll be available to watch on YouTube afterwards, and it'll also stay on Facebook. But thanks, folks. I'm now going to watch. I'm going to go and disappear, get a bit of food, and if you're in the UK, BBC One, 9 o'clock, The Long Shadow. Amazing, absolutely amazing. 7-part drama about the Yorkshire Ripper with some really big actors and actresses in there as well. Really good. And it's great because it doesn't focus on whoever the Yorkshire Ripper was. It focuses on the families. It is an incredible, incredible drama. So that's what I'm going to be watching tonight. So, folks, I will see you in about a week's time with another live. There will be some pre-records in the meantime. So wherever you are, wherever in the world you are, enjoy the rest of your day, rest of your evening, and I'll catch you soon.